of notes.
I'm not
Because $20 a minute, we're getting her off the phone as soon as possible.
Nobody knows
Y'all have
yet?
to figure out how to do this video thingamabob instead.
Well, she's got him around the speakerphone, I think.
Yes, they're both on the speakerphone.
No, you can do Skype for $1.
Exactly. Ready? Okay, perfect. Workshop commission meeting, 6:00 p.m., Wednesday, January 8th, 2025. Pledge of allegiance, please. Sorry, I didn't have my mic on. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Sorry. Wait, I'm confused right now.
You're in your. Oh, okay. Somebody's been moving. No, give one of them to.
Okay.
Oh, that would nowhere.
I don't know.
I don't know why there's an extra one. Maybe that's. They've been moved around.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Never mind the bus
I
cuts.
don't know. Roll call.
Commissioner Jacobs?
Yes.
Commissioner Acting Clerk Hashem?
Yes.
Commissioner Clerk Hodgkins?
Here.
Vice Mayor Morissette?
Here.
Mayor Mohammed?
Here.
You have a quorum?
Okay, perfect. Okay, are there any deletions or withdrawals to the agenda? Nope. Okay, then we're gonna move on. Right? Are y'all, did you look?
Oh, we good.
Tell me if I'm moving too fast. Okay. All right, so we're gonna do the presentations. Do you wanna start off with that?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Our Service Director, Mr. Morantis, will do a brief, very brief introduction for these very brief presentations. Stan?
Yes, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commissioners. Happy New Year. And this evening here, I bring before you 3 presentations. Let me rest you assured that these are not final. These are not final master plans or assessments. Well, let me reinstate that. These are not final projects that we'll all go ahead and construct or proceed with. We do have to proceed with the CIP, which we look forward to having a different meeting, a different setting, where we're able to go in details as to what these projects are and decide as to which one will be priorities within the next 3 to 5 years or even more. So to get us started with our presentation, item 5.1, we have here Kimley-Horn, who performed our vulnerability assessment. And we have here our presenters from Kimley-Horn to go ahead and inform us as to what they have suggested and determined.
All right, thank you. Excuse me. Thank you for having us, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Matt Brosman. I'm an engineer with Kimley-Horn and Associates, and we're here to give you a summary of the study that we performed, the Town of Pembroke Park's vulnerability assessment. Clicker?
She has, I give you a clicker.
It's not.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll just say next slide. So just a little bit of background information about the project. This vulnerability assessment study is a standardized study that actually almost all municipalities in the state of Florida can pursue. It's collaboratively funded by both the Town of Pembroke Park and Florida DEP. Next slide. So the vulnerability assessment program is run through the Resilient Florida program. There's tens of millions of dollars of implementation funding that goes through that program. But there's also a planning component of that program, and that's what we went through with this vulnerability assessment process. So in order to unlock the implementation funding associated with the Resilient Florida Infrastructure Program, a vulnerability assessment has to be performed in accordance with the Florida state statute that's been established for these studies. So that's what we sought to do, conduct a study that identifies flood risks due to rainfall, storm surge, sea level rise in the town of Pembroke Park, and then compare that to the critical assets that exist within the town to understand what critical assets are most vulnerable to those various flood threats. So you can think of this as a stormwater study or a flood study that has kind of an infrastructure focus to it, with the intent of ultimately funding future infrastructure investment. Next slide. So just a summary of the steps that we went through. We went through a data collection effort, data gap analysis, did a couple of analyses called exposure analyses and sensitivity analyses. Ultimately identified focus areas for potential future projects to be focused in, and then lastly compiled all of this for submission to the state of Florida. So with that, we'll go to the next slide, and Giselle, if you want to cover the first couple sections.
Thank you, Matt. So the first step in the assessment was collecting data, and this was organized into 3 categories. The first was collecting an inventory of all the assets as defined by FTEP, and this included transportation assets, critical infrastructure such as pump stations, and for this we really collaborated with Tiffany's team and used what they implemented into their stormwater master plan. Oh, thank you. And critical community facilities such as this town hall, and then finally natural, cultural, and historical resources such as parks and surface waters. We then collected topographic data, so this is just the elevation data of the town, and finally flood scenario data such as rainfall, tidal flooding, and storm surge. Next slide. So we did this iteratively for 25 scenarios in current and future conditions for all of the scenarios that I mentioned previously. And we created maps for all of these scenarios. So this is just one example for the king tide intermediate high 2040 conditions. Next slide. And so again, we did this over and over again for all these scenarios. So this is the 100-year, 24-hour rainfall event, and you could see the assets that intersect with the flooding. Next slide. Oh, these are the assets. Next slide. And we did this for the 500-year, 24-hour. Next slide. So we just did this over and over again in current and future conditions. Next slide. This is for the current storm surge in a Category 5 hurricane. Next slide. Next slide. Okay, I'm going to hand it over to Matt.
All right, thanks, Giselle. So after understanding those flood hazards, we then brought that into comparing that versus the critical assets within the town. And so what we did was we identified the critical elevation for each asset. So ultimately trying to understand what elevation at which that facility or that asset would start no longer functioning as intended or otherwise incur significant damage, such as a roadway being impassable or a pump station being inoperable. And then compared that for all the different versus the flood elevation for all of the different flood scenarios that we considered to determine what risk classification a given asset or a given facility might have for any given storm event. So that led to a series of tables like this. Next slide. And then we generated similarly to that last series of analyses, color-coded maps that color-coded each asset based on the risk classification that it was experiencing. So this was for the 100-year rainfall event. Next slide. This was for the 500-year. Next slide. And this was for example, king tide in the 2040 future conditions. Next slide. So we then identified focus areas, which was a combination effort of considering the findings of the Stormwater Master Plan that Tiffany and her team will give you a presentation on next, but also considering what areas within the town have the most assets that are vulnerable to the most varied and significant storm events. So we identified these 3 focus areas in coordination with town staff to identify. This doesn't say necessarily that these are the only areas where projects can occur, But what it does is it informs the state of these are the areas where the public dollar will go the furthest to protecting the critical infrastructure that the state is invested in protecting into the future. Next slide. So adaptation strategies, these are really, we leave these pretty broad. As Stanley indicated, the purpose of this study is not to say, okay, here are the approved projects that are going to be going into the ground. This is a pretty high-level study that's meant to identify those focus areas, identify asset by asset, kind of what the vulnerability of each of those assets are, and then identify adaptation strategies. Some of those being in the ground things like elevating infrastructure, some of those being operational things like considering having deployable flood barriers for buildings like town hall or other critical facilities. And then some of those are more planning based, right? Considering adoption of a more stringent finished floor criteria, some other policy related recommendations that came out of this study. Next slide. And so lastly, the phase that we're at now, we've prepared this study. We've been working on it for over a year, compiled it. The state is currently reviewing it. And we expect that they will be either providing comments or providing approval for the study in the near future. Next slide. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Yeah, I got one real quick. What's the criteria for a 100-year storm? How many inches of rain within what time limit?
So I don't have the number offhand. I want to say it's something like 14 or 15 inches over the course of a 72-hour storm. And then for a 24-hour storm, it's something like 11 or 12 inches. The Water Management District gives us that design information. But I will say for future conditions, South Florida Water Management District just finished some future rainfall criteria studies that have increased factors because, as we all have experienced, the frequency of large storm events has been increasing over time. And so the district has been studying this along with some of the other scientific leaders in the field and have identified rainfall increase factors that we did consider in future conditions.
Yeah, because in real life, we had a 100-year storm in 2023, and then we had one last year. So the 100-year storm comes every year, once or twice.
Yes, it's
At least.
so they're catching up, I would say.
Yeah, no, it's just like maybe we're working with the wrong numbers.
Do you guys have any other questions?
Mayor, if I could have your attention for just a moment. Our plan is to have the clerk, as you know, schedule a special meeting where there'll be a more detailed analysis of the Kimley-Horn report as relates to vulnerability and also as relates to stormwater, which is coming next. So we'll have every opportunity to have a very detailed, long-form presentation with more questions that will be directed to you at that time. So we appreciate your patience.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. So we are going to switch over now to 5.2 Stormwater Master Plan.
Item 8.2, I won't touch, or 5.2
5.2.
rather, sorry about that. We have with us, again, Kimley-Horn and Associates to present the Stormwater Master Plan. And I'll hand it over to Tiffany and her team to present that to us.
Sorry, right, wrong one. No, that's not the one.
That's it?
She wanted the presentation.
Yeah, I
PowerPoint.
prefer the PowerPoint. It just presents prettier.
That's it.
Well, thank you for allowing us to come and talk about the storm. Can you guys hear me? Okay. Thank you for allowing us to come and talk about the Stormwater Master Plan. We've been working on this for about 2 years now for you guys. It was finalized towards the end of last year. My name is Tiffany Stanton. I represent Kimley-Horn, and I was the technical lead on this project as well as one of the project managers. So go ahead, next slide. So a little bit of background as far as what goes into a stormwater master plan. Really, the roots of this is developing a capital improvement program for you guys that you can run forward with. I mean, we have a lot of experience in stormwater planning and construction, so we pull on that experience and try to give you guys real projects that can go in the ground and that are very feasible to really help you out with your stormwater. So where we start is, just like with Matt's team, is a data review. We dive into every permit we found throughout your town, pulling in LiDAR information, groundwater information, how everything's flowing through your town, where your pipes are, where your pumps are, what are they pumping? And we pulled a whole lot of that information, which was the bulk of what we did. Next, we dove into, oops, sorry, go back.
Hold on. There we go.
All right. So next we dove into our actual drainage analysis. We had put together a huge model of your entire town, similar to what Matt had done, just to kind of see where we saw flooding. And that was really the basis of our analysis. And lastly, we dove into, what we recommend for your operation maintenance budgeting, as well as the next 10 years, what, a recommended capital improvement plan for you guys. Next slide. So this is just an overall view of the actual model that we put together. Like I said, we pulled in all available information, LiDAR information, piping information, and we built a massive model of your town. Next slide. So with this model, it's one thing to say that, we don't want it to flood, but in the stormwater world, we need something to gauge that against. So we came up with performance goals that we would recommend for your town. A lot of this is based on, state criteria, district criteria, county criteria, as well as what we're seeing for other neighborhoods within South Florida. So really the start of it is keeping your roads clear. So we did look at the 10-year storm. We recommend that you keep your roads clear for a 10-year storm. We want your residents and your businesses to be able to still drive around. And 10-year storm is where you're really starting to feel like, hey, it rained. Beyond that, we looked at the 100-year storm, and we wanted to make sure that, we're keeping those storm stages below your finished floor elevation of your building to protect the buildings. We also wanted to look at, we don't want to contribute to any FEMA floodplains and make them worse. So that was something else that we were looking at. And another state criteria is water quality. The state requires that you keep a certain amount of your stormwater on your site, let it percolate back into the ground to clean it. So that way the dirty stormwater isn't going directly to an open water body. So we took that into account as well. And then looking forward, at the time we were putting this together, it was an up-and-coming stormwater rule. Since then, it has been implemented by the state. But the state is now looking at reducing total nitrogen and total phosphorus in stormwater, and that was something that we did take into account for all of the projects that we're proposing. Next slide. So this is our 100-year model. What this shows is the flooding above grade. The darker blue represents a higher flood column. And you can see the darker blue is over your lakes, and that's where the water should be columning up. We were really looking at areas within the right-of-way outside of that. And those were our opportunities to find ways to get the water, maybe to a lake or somewhere else. This also shows the 10 projects that we identified for the capital improvement plan. Next slide, please. So this is the first one. We saw a lot of flooding along Park Road. So to help out with budgeting, we split that up into 3 separate projects. What we were seeing is isolated stormwater systems and not one comprehensive stormwater system along Park Road. So we really thought that we would benefit from placing more inlets, allowing the water to go underground, and just one pipeline all the way up and down Park Road. There is a stormwater pipeline going down Park Road now, but it looks like there's another pipe within it, and it's just not a great system. So we would recommend,
It's full of coconuts.
huh?
I said it's full of coconuts.
Yeah, there was clearly something going on. A nice fresh system would really benefit and help the water get back to that pump station. We're seeing that you have pump stations, the water's not always getting back to them. So next slide, please. So this is the second phase of a Park Road. It's a lot of the same thing. Adding inlets, allowing the water to get underground, and piping it back through to one of those pump stations. Next slide. And this is the third phase of Park Road. It's the most southern half. There's a little section of Park Road that we didn't address, but that's because you guys are already planning a project in that area. I believe it's already in design. I don't know if you started construction yet. So we're not going to plan a project there. It's already been accounted for. So we did take that into account. Next slide. So another area we identified is 31st. Again, we split it up into two different projects just to help out with the budgeting. But it's the same thing. It's getting that water into one pipe, and then you have another trunk line going down Carolina. So we felt like making a connection to that, and that goes back to the pump station, would really benefit that area. Next slide. Same thing. This is just the northern portion of 31st Avenue. So next we moved over to the west side of the town. They operate hydraulically very differently. The east side is very, has a lot of pumps. The west side, there's nowhere to put the water except for underground. So we started changing our thinking. On the east side, we were looking at opportunities to get it back to a pump station, whereas on the west side, we were looking for opportunities to get the stormwater underground with exfiltration trench, which is a very common practice here in South Florida. So that's what we're proposing for this neighborhood along 55th is really just lining the streets with exfiltration trench.
That's all gravity flow.
Yeah. Next slide. So this is just pretty much a continuation of the last project in the adjacent neighborhood. Again, another opportunity to put inlets and exfiltration trench. We also saw some flooding down 52nd, specifically on the south side. So again, we really think that, one strong line of exfiltration trench. We also saw higher elevations out there, which was more conducive for placing exfiltration trench. So again, it's a great opportunity. And also there was some green area on the side of the streets that could probably use some swales. That I think that would really help out as well. Next slide. And lastly, 36 Court, we did see some flooding down there. So we think this is another opportunity to put exfiltration trench. So going through and coming up with these projects, we came up with a cost for every one of these projects based on our knowledge of, how much it costs for piping, for inlets and everything else, as well as serving fees. And then we also came up with a ranking system. Higher priority projects need to be built first. And how do you quantify that? So we came up with a ranking system, and it's spelled out in the Stormwater Master Plan, but it's based on the hydrologic need. Is it flooding more in that area? Do you have higher traffic flows in that area? As well as what was observed. We spent a lot of time driving your town and seeing where we actually, to truth up our model, where did we see flooding? And we talked to your staff. And a lot of this is a combination of our modeling, what we saw, and your staff. And this is how we came up with these areas as well as the ranking. And then we also took a look at, what you should be budgeting out for the next 10 years to keep up with this plan. Next slide. So this is it. This is our recommended capital improvement plan. We kept the fees or the budget every year. It floats between, $1 million, $1.2 million. That was a combination of, what fees you have coming in and what your public works director at the time had told us that, he would like to see every year. It's proposing a project every single year. We are taking into account the operation and maintenance, and you'll see there's a very steep escalation in the operation and maintenance. The reasoning for that is that we're accounting for an increase every year for the cost of labor, cost of materials. That goes up over time. And also, as every single one of these projects go online, you're going to have more infrastructure to maintain, and we're accounting for that. So that is built into this capital improvement plan. And that concludes my presentation. Any comments, questions?
Nope.
I covered everything?
Yes, we
All right.
thank you very
Thank you.
much. Okay. So we are going to go on to 5.3 wastewater master plan. Craig Smith.
All right, last but not least, we have the wastewater master plan, which was performed by Craig A. Smith and Associates, and we have Daniel Schonk to present that to us.
Is the clicker working at all?
No, I don't think so. Sorry,
We'll try to fumble.
but your USB hasn't opened, so
Oh, it hasn't?
nope. All right, now it is. So the PowerPoint, correct?
Yeah. All right, so good evening, council, mayor, town staff. I think it's been about 24 years since we've done a master plan for your sewer, so it wasn't really much we could pull from the existing master plan from 20 years ago. The models, everything had to be all regenerated, and even the programs that we used in the past, the people that have those programs didn't even have that. It wouldn't translate to the new program. So we'll just run into history. It might be easier if I go straight to one of the overall maps and kind of go through a brief history of the town. If you can skip ahead. There we go. So the history of your town is that you were built out in segments, and pretty much every one of these little lift station areas indicated here, and these little labels, these were all separate growth, trailer, mobile home parks, and this has created like this big network of infrastructure throughout the town. You can see sprinkles of lift stations here, right here, over here, down through here. So what this has created is an immense amount of infrastructure for a nearly 1 square mile town, which you guys have more infrastructure than some of your neighbors, which might be 10 or 15 square miles. So this brings a lot of O&M costs, and it's old, shallow gravity sewers, which is also complicated because you got a lot of lift stations and you don't have much reach with these. And the other problems that you face as far as historically and just naturally is there's a very high water table with very old clay pipes. So you're seeing a massive amount of I&I. So let's go back to the going. So scope of services, basically we had to go back through, like I reiterate what I said earlier, we had to go through and pretty much take this whole, the old master plan was pretty much scrapped, and we had to rebuild everything out. And building new models, building, getting all the information as far as agreements. A lot of these agreements that you have with other municipalities as far as treating the sewer and transferring the sewer to the treatment facilities. A lot of these agreements were done prior to the original master plan, so we had to try to gather those as well. Old maps, because the town was piecemealed and built privately and then transferred, it was a really arduous task in trying to find any kind of as-built. We were just basically pulling scraps of plans that may have been proposed, construction, and a sprinkling of as-built. And when we were building the atlas out for the gravity sewers, this created sort of a problem in that we had to basically interpolate. There might be one segment where we have inverts and some segments we don't, and we just used interpolation to fit those manholes. And we worked a lot with a leam. So what you'll see in the model is, yeah, we have inverts for everything, and we have an elevation for everything, but there's a key note there is those are planned or interpolated inverts to help the model grow. And what that does benefit later on with the model is we can add growth to the town in certain segments, like you're going to see up here at 52nd and Hallandale Beach Boulevard. You're going to see a massive amount of growth there. When I plug that in the model, you're going to see results. We did some future results for a build out of 25 units per acre in these empty lot areas, and a build out for 50 units per acre in these empty lot areas. And you can see in the model and the results in the 300 pages of results how that affects your system and what plans and projects we need to put together to fit that growth. And then we did an analysis where we did a review and field visit for every lift station in town. And this was eye-opening because I think we had only planned for 26 lift stations, and we found out we wanted to include in your model the private lift stations, and throughout the history, there's been 49 lift stations in town. There's two 18s, 18A and 18. So we only have 48 listed, but that's because there's an 18A and 18 lift station. All right, next slide. System flows and modeling. So supporting information and outfalls. So again, we're looking for these agreements, and we couldn't find them, and we put placeholders in the master plan. So when you guys do find those agreements, we can put them in. But these agreements are integral into assessing how much sewage capacity you guys have going out of the town. So that's very important for your growth. You got to know what your targets are. Now we can go to the large users portal through the county and Hollywood, and we can see what you guys are sending out of the town currently, but there's also other agreements like, flip ahead to the map. There is an outfall number 2 here by the park, and that outfall has an agreement with the county. It's a separate agreement, so you got to be cognizant of any growth in this side of the town and understand that that agreement kind of holds, and we got to make sure we're not exceeding that agreement. So there's 2 agreements that we got to make sure we're not exceeding if there is any growth in the town, which is probably the most important thing for you guys right now. Is just everybody getting a grasp of where you're at as far as your capacities and how much you need to ask for in the future to get out ahead of your growth and get capacity for this growth. Go ahead. Back, go ahead and go down 1, 2. Here's my modeling. I already discussed that, 25 units per acre, 15 units per acre. And then we broke out all the different data tables for that. You guys can skim through that as much as you want. I'm going to hit on the main points, a couple sheets of that model data tonight. The rest is just, I mean, if you want to spend a lot of time, you can. All right, go into the next one.
We have a special schedule.
Yeah, yeah. Go to the next one. Okay, so this is your capacity right now. So at Pembroke Park, you can see right now, your capacity encumbered is at 108. So Aleem had brought this up and said, hey, you know, we're kind of getting close to that capacity. Granted, you got a boatload of I&I, so you got a lot of water going out. So we need to get a handle on that, get a better idea of what capacity you're currently at, and then figure out how much you need moving forward. But just by looking at it right now, it looks like you're going to need more moving forward. And from what I'm hearing, there is a major growth going on with 320 plus units. That's going to really, you're going to really need to address this. Next page. So Aleem and I had gone through, and he said, hey, give me a letter, give me a letter justifying this, this asks for credit or asks for capacity. I said, okay, so Todd and I put together this letter and sent it out to Aleem. And so you guys have this letter to submit to the Hollywood to ask for more growth whenever you need necessary, or we can revisit this letter and update it. Next slide. Next slide. So now I'm just going to go into our atlas and what we built. This atlas is it's just the face of the model. So this is where all the work is, and this is what anybody's going to reference if you have any growth or anything going on in the town. The blue is the force mains, the red is the gravity. So I'm just going to go through and hit on points of the town as we go through this atlas real quick and where your projects are going to be. And then the list of the projects at the end, if you want to go through the projects on your own, you can see what projects and the descriptions for them. So right here you have Coca-Cola and Lift Station 19. Currently have a project with us at Lift Station 19. We got the flows from Coca-Cola, I think, this week. So we're going to have an idea of where they're at. This lift station was designed 2005, but Coca-Cola keeps expanding. So we want to, they're an important customer for you guys, or an important part of your town. And we want to make sure we keep them happy. So that lift station, we're going to go through and make sure that Coca-Cola has all the capacity they need moving forward. You have their interconnecteds here too. Some of the issues I'm seeing with this interconnected growth continues in the town is these force mains come out and hit a 12-inch. It's kind of a bottleneck. So we need to look at that in the long term in the future. And bottlenecks into a 10 and then over to 12. Maybe fix a couple segments of there, bump them up from a 10 to a 12 so it's 12 all the way through. And get as much capacity out to the county as possible. Over in this area, you have a Superfund area. And so a lot of this is going to get torn out. And we got to figure out, how we're going to be recouped for these and if we're going to get money back from them to rebuild this infrastructure. Next slide. So, this area of the town, not much really going on here. A lot of detail, but nothing we need to address except for lift station 26 and go back one and 22. They vacated this mobile home park, and I'm suspecting that they're going to be throwing something at you for expansion or growth. I don't know if it'll be the 25 units per acre or 50 units per acre ask, but there might be a development in this area, which would basically mean that we want to probably, whoever develops this is going to want to put their own lift station in. So you might eliminate 2 lift stations right there, get one back, and they'll pay for it, kind of thing. It's what you want to do, develop it there. Move on. Okay, lift station 34. This is kind of a hot topic because you have some gravity sewers through here that are backing up in the model and reaching capacity. So we're going to look at, we did a project, we're saying put a project together here to bump this from 8 to a 12. Down in this area, you got a lot of lift stations. You can see on the next page, there's 3 here, and then next page, you got all these lift stations here. Lift station 1. We've got a project put together where if we just put a deeper wet well in, we can do a couple segments of gravity and, well, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 segments of gravity and maybe pick up a lot of this. So we might be getting a 5-for-1 kind of deal. Build a new lift station, make it deeper, build some deeper gravity sewers, and then pick up where these lift stations are and then remove those lift stations, thus removing the I&I, or not the I, the O&M from that segment of town. A lot of O&M for all these lift stations. Next one. This area here, a lot of I&I, a lot of clay pipes throughout this whole area. It's like you are basically a sieve for this lake, and you're collecting lake and pumping it and paying it to be treated. So that's another issue we want to hit up and make sure that gets taken care of. Next slide. This area of town's pretty tight. It's a lot of PVC, new lift stations. Pretty good situation for you guys. Next slide. Same way with this. Really good situation for you. All PVC, really tight. Next slide. This is a really problematic area. This is your 30th Street. This is where you've been seeing a lot of problems with your asbestos pipe busting over and over again. I think that pipe's been paid for 3 or 4 times over, that project, with just the repairs. So as soon as you can get that in, the better. I think Keith Associates already got that permitted. They're going to put that in. Next slide. More of the same. Also with this 30th, the main plan from the old master plan was to get rid of all these lift stations down through there, keep 2 of them, do gravity sewers to this intersection, salvage lift station 15, make it deeper, and that would get rid of lift station 13. Go back to the previous slide. And similarly to this, it'd be this intersection back to lift station 12, and this over here, gravity sewer, eliminate all the rest of those lift stations. Really saves you a lot on operation and maintenance. Why pay for 8 lift stations when you can have 2 lift stations, kind of thing. You just got to put some gravity sewer in, That's it. Move forward. Next slide. Next slide. Hot topic here, project that I think we can go after, get some grant funding, is a septic to sewer project in this location. So we've done a brief description of a project for that. And I think you guys, there's an opportunity, I spoke to some of your grant writers about that, to get a septic to sewer project there. I think we just put in a lift station, maybe pump it over to one of these,
Okay.
and then move forward. Wrap it up. Okay, keep going. Next slide. And then you got lift station. This side of town, a lot of PVC, not really an issue. Next slide. And you got your lift station 17. And to the north there was lift station 14. And we're working on both of those. Those are old, very old lift stations. We're going to convert those to submersible lift stations. We're having a lot of wet well capacity issues here. So growth is not possible until we get that wet well.
Dan, you're going to go into all of this in the detailed meeting that we're going to have, the lunch and learn, because there's a lot of things on
Just
the
ran through
agenda.
that whole town there. Done. So there's a list of all the projects and descriptions after that. So we're good.
Well,
And then
we'll
the-
get the details
Yeah.
at the next meeting that we get together with, so
Yeah.
All right.
thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Dan.
Yep.
Okay, we're going to go on to 6.1, reports of the committees and town staff. So you guys have your monthly reports. If there are any questions, you have your,
Yeah, Madam Mayor, the finance director will be first.
okay.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Commission members. Happy New Year all. I just wanted to provide a brief budget update on the town's financial management to this point in time. The numbers here are accurate as of the end of December 31st of last year. For the general fund, on an allocation of $4.4 million budgeted, we spent $2.7 million, and that's year to date. So we're comfortably under budget, and we have 85% of the operating budget left to start at the end of the year. With respect to sewer, on an allocation of $1.2 million, we've spent currently $141,000. We've got 97% that budget left, it's dry powder. And for stormwater, we've got $1.4 million budgeted and have spent $155,000 so far. Got 97% of that available as well. And for building, on a budget of $235,000, we spent $110,000. And again, all of this is year to date through 12/31. Got 88% budget remaining there. So the town is in a strong position in terms of its financial management and cost control. And our revenue outlook also looks strong. We have an operating budget of $17.8 million and have received about 50% in ad valorem and other fees through this point. And they'll continue to come in intermittently. So the town is in a strong financial position. And the finance department has been having meetings with all of the department heads. And we've not identified any line items at this time that present a risk or an operating risk to the town. And when we do meet, we discuss any priorities or upcoming expenditures that may have an adverse impact. And so we take that into account as well. Are there any questions or comments?
Oh, thank you for keeping us safe.
Much appreciated. My pleasure.
Madam Mayor, the next presenter is Jeff Lewis from our building department.
Okay. Jeffrey, come on down.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. Jeffrey Lewis, Building and Facilities Manager for Pembroke Park. For the building department, we've had 36 permit applications for additions, renovations, and repairs, 93 total plan reviews, and completed 199 inspections throughout the trade, and issued 28 permits. Usually it's much higher, but for December, of course, with the holidays, things kind of slow down a little bit. No major projects at this current time, but we know there's going to be future projects in a couple of months. As for code compliance, in that department, they have sent out for the month of December 18 notice of violations, 1 courtesy notice, and 22 affidavit of compliance. and sent out 25 notice of hearings for the following special magistrate hearing for January. In November, they have also did the special magistrate on November 20th, and they had 23 cases in total. And all the details are in your backup. Is there any questions or concerns?
No, thank you.
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Joe.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. He's just back from a conference, but I'm guessing he's ready to give a report, and that's our police chief, Dan DeCourcy.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. Dan DeCourcy with the Police Department. Last month, we had a pretty busy month from November 26th to the 29th. We had 53 accidents that our officers handled. That includes hit and runs, regular type accidents and
Chief, could you speak up a little bit?
Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, so we handled 53 traffic crashes during the last month. Our total number of alarm calls were 71. We had 12 burglaries in the town last month, and we handled 171 general incidents, and that would involve missing persons, stolen tags, and stolen vehicles and things of that nature. We handled 724 police service calls. That's self-initiated activity by our officers, our footprints, our area checks, our citizen contacts, and so on, as well as our building checks. So we saw a pretty good increase in that. As far as arrests, we had 16 arrests last month. Traffic stops, our officers conducted 33 traffic stops. Citations issued, we issued 65 citations, and some of those, 16 of those were warnings. 12 of those were warnings, or 13 rather, and our crash reports that we turned in were a total of 50 crash reports. Some of our highlights that our officers did, we were involved in several city events last month, starting off with the turkey giveaway and pardoning and the holiday toy drive. Our accreditation team continues to update our policies, constantly putting them out through our Power DMS system, updating our policies regarding our body-worn cameras, uniforms, professional appearance policies, and our supervisor's report of vehicle damage. Staffing, we did put on two new community service aides within the last month, which are currently going through training and assisting with our traffic crashes, handling our non-criminal incidents in the town, to include handicap violations, writing handicap tickets, and so on. Those are going on city citations. We also were able to hire Officer Antonis Bellany, who started with us. He joined us from the Bartow Police Department, where he was a police officer there. He brings an extensive amount of experience with us. He's a breath test operator, that he's certified in that, as well as radar certified. So he's got a little traffic background, which will be an asset to the town. We have one current internal affairs investigation that's being conducted. We have been participating with the town manager and the assistant town manager in the negotiations, contract negotiations, to highlight some of the stronger cases we did. We did have that one case where we made the arrest regarding that incident that occurred on Hallandale Beach Boulevard, where the woman was struck by the vehicle intentionally. That was an attempted murder arrest, and we also had a very large grand theft arrest on the 12th of December. Anybody have any questions?
Nope.
Thank you.
Righty.
Okay, our next report is from our service director, Stan Morantis.
I'll keep it short and sweet. Within the month of December, we've administratively, we've of course been still reviewing day-to-day operation to make sure everything is moving smoothly and everybody understands their operational aspects of work. As far as fulfilled tasks, we're looking forward to refurbishing the courts at Howard P. Clark Linear Park. Hopefully sometime in the near future. We actually had the chance to go out with our town manager, Dave, which we had a wonderful walkthrough and get familiar with as to what we have to do out there. The Southwest 30th Street which Dan talked about. We do have that on the street. It is RFP out there for folks to provide proposal to us for consideration in the near future. But we're looking forward to releasing the Southwest 25th Street Stormwater Improvement Project sometime this month. And last but not least, we're looking forward to removing our banners along Hollandale Beach Boulevard from the holidays, and also removing the Christmas lights both on Hollandale Beach Boulevard and the Town Hall. That's all I got. Any questions for me?
Stan,
Yes, sir.
You're also scheduling the installation of the things for the lake, the life rings.
That's correct. We have a date of Monday for two of the lakes that are here in town that we have access to. We're looking to install about 4 life rings at those locations with the potential opportunity to installing maybe another 2 more in a different location. So we do plan on doing that Monday, and hopefully in the near future also having a ceremonial type event with the community.
Sure, that'd be great.
Yes.
Yeah, Madam Mayor, members of the commission, February 3, tentatively, we're making sure that Aiden's mother, who's really the driver of this thing, and our commissioners can attend. So once we get that cleared, by February 3, we'll do a formal unveiling and a ceremony greatly dedicated to her son, who, as you know, lost his life. So, okay, thank you.
2 years ago, almost.
Yeah, I remember. There's been a job done by one of the lakes over in the mobile home parks on Charles Road, and they made some erosion control, building a wall around that lake, and it looks very neat and it's finished. But somebody pointed out to me that there was no, egress from that lake. If somebody falls in, you can't get out of it. And there's already been animals falling in there and drowning because they simply can't get out. So over there, one might be a very good idea to have a life ring in case somebody sees what's happening. Yeah, you haven't seen that project. It's over by Linear Park.
The seawall?
Yeah, the seawall.
We did a few years ago?
No, it's brand new. It's just been finished.
They
Yeah.
just finished it.
Yeah, and you cannot get out of that lake if you fall in.
Well, Arlene was supposed to be working with you, attorney, to get some possible agreements with some of the private property owners around the lake so that we could install them. I don't think that ever happened, did it? Well, it's 2 years since we met Aiden's mom, so.
No, and that park has been changed hands.
Huh, Aline, yeah. Because we were having discussion about this back and forth for a while about which lakes we should put them around, and well, no, here's the problem. Like Azure right here next to City Hall is privately surrounded. We don't have any rights to that lake, but it is a lake in the city, and things do end up in that lake all the time.
Is there a property manager?
Yeah, there's a property manager, yeah. But we have, what is it, about 7? So the city's like 1.6 square miles and 0.5 is all lake. So while we have city access to Behan Park's lake and then the lake in back of the,
Linear.
yeah, something, yeah.
Well, if I can, if I interject, Mayor, Mr. Town Law Director, Commissioner Jacobs was actually part of the conference we had with Aiden's mother the other day, and he's going to be talking to the private lakes, initiate a dialogue with them, and that will result in us presenting something to you for a licensure agreement, so that, because we're already talking about installing in all the public locations, and then all 5 of the private locations as well, because, let's face it, there's danger in every single one of those waterways.
How many rings did we get? Life
Well,
rings?
Rings are free. You have to pay for the rope with her, is what she said. And she provides 50 feet of rope, so if you need more than 50 feet, then you would just have to buy the additional ropes.
Well, she's only going to give us 10.
Oh, she
And we
limited that?
think, we just had a conference with her,
Oh, sure,
but that's
well,
okay, because we may in the end need 15 or 20, but
Yeah.
however, and they're not making money on the rings, even the ones we buy, so.
Yeah, no.
Okay.
All right, we'll definitely take a look at that and,
Yeah, well, I'll show you where the problem is.
okay, okay.
I'll
sounds
meet with
good.
you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, that concludes the administrative reports, Mayor.
I'm gonna bring Chief Kane.
Oh, I'm sorry, the
up.
fire
sorry.
chief is here.
The fire chief is here, and then you also have the IT director.
Where?
Thanks.
Aha. Well, you already made it up here, so.
Well, I'm just showing her something, but yeah, I'll come. Good evening, Mr. Manager, Madam Mayor, Commission, and staff. Battalion Chief Michael Kane, Broward Sheriff's Office, Fire Rescue, presenting the statistics for months November and December, respectively, 2024. I'll start with December. In the month of December, we ran a total of 204 calls in the town. The composition is vehicle accidents were 18, vehicle accidents on the highway were 27, structure fires were 4, medical incidents were 126, fire alarms were 22, and service calls were 7 for a total of 204 for the month of December. For the month of November, we ran a total of 215 calls. The composition was structure fires were 11, vehicle accidents were 8, highway calls were 20, fire alarms were 21, medical calls were 146,
Some here.
service calls were 9. That brings us to a total of 215. Both months are very similar in nature.
Maybe just
No
one.
aberrancies, and that completes my report. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
Nope, thank you.
Okay, have a good evening. Thank you.
You too,
You too.
thank you.
Happy New Year.
You too,
Yeah, Happy New Year to you too. And your staff.
Okay. Mark has a report in the book.
8.1?
Well, I was giving him his opportunity for monthly reports.
Okay.
Have a section
Mark
just for
Pakula,
his
IT Director for
report, which he
Town
did
Park,
include in the book.
Mayor and Commissioners. We're working on a lot of projects for the town and the police side, doing a lot of procurement, working on projects behind the scenes to bring those to you. I have an item tonight I'd like to talk about too. Doing a lot of service calls for the town and the police, basically handling anything that arises on a daily, daily problems that arise, we fix. And that's all I have for right now. I normally don't like to talk about certain things up here.
Okay, so while you're up there, we're gonna move on over to
9.
business 8.1 fiber for the police department.
Yes. This is a additional circuit that we're going to bring into our police department. We have a circuit already that will become our backup for redundancy, for failover. And this new circuit that we're bringing in will be the main circuit for our police department.
So you need that on consent, and you have an amount not to exceed for us for next week?
Yeah, it should be all in there.
Okay,
Everything, the
perfect.
contract's been
So
approved.
that can go on consent.
Yes.
We're gonna switch around to 8 point,
All right,
you're doing
8.3?
GeoSCADA, right? You're doing GeoSCADA?
No,
8 point-
I think Stanley, I mean, I can help out, but I know Stanley is going to talk about that.
Okay. So wait, that was all you had? Was just the fiber? Okay,
That's it.
Thank you.
all right, thank
you
you,
very
Mark. All right, so 8.2,
Good evening, Mayor and Commission. You may recall at your last commission meeting, the commission requested an ordinance providing for an amendment to your procurement code. We currently have language in the code in section 2-125 that provides for a waiver of the competitive procurement requirements upon the adoption of a resolution by the town commission. I can only recall one instance over the past couple of years where the commission's waived procurement, those requirements by resolution. I think that was actually to engage Dave Delina under some compressed time circumstances. There was a need from a professional service standpoint to bring him on board. The commission requested an ordinance that would amend that provision, not to change the ability to waive that requirement, but to eliminate the resolution requirement. Currently requires the adoption of a resolution. The ordinance before you this evening, which will be on your regular meeting for first reading, would require a motion upon a finding by the city commission that the waiver is in the best interest of the town. So we would just, again, we'd want a public finding, which we would typically include in the whereas clauses of a resolution. But if the objective is to remove the resolution requirement, I would just recommend some public finding as to the reason for the waiver, and then the waiver could be approved by motion. So that's what,
Basically, this
So basically, this is like an emergency situation type.
Yeah, I mean, our code does provide for emergency procurement. I mean, there's an opportunity, given certain circumstances involving threats to health, safety, life, welfare, where you can make procurements outside of the competitive process. There may be other instances that don't necessarily rise to the level of a public health, safety, or welfare emergency.
Name one.
But I mean, the engagement of Mr. Dolina, for instance.
Okay.
You know, we had some financial challenges about a year or so ago.
Yeah, okay.
That's probably putting it mildly. So in order to get the ship righted, so to speak, there was a need to bring him on board in a fairly short order. There may not have been the time to go through a full process in order to finalize the audit I believe he was working for.
Right.
So the commission waived that process to get him signed up to ensure we met those statutory deadlines. So that was an example where it wouldn't be a code or statutory emergency, but may warrant a waiver for a specific purpose. And the resolution included those findings to support that particular engagement. This doesn't change anything that's not currently in your code, other than eliminate the resolution requirement and allow for that waiver by motion with a finding of that's in the best interest of the town.
I got it. Thank you.
That's the only change.
Any questions?
Nope.
8.3, authorization to award a contract for the purchase and installation of the GeoSCADA electrical monitoring system project.
Hello, Mayor and Commissioners, once more. This item here is to purchase and install GeoSCADA electronic monitoring systems throughout our lift stations and our stormwater stations as well. We currently have 2 installed, one at lift station 19, which is near Coca-Cola. And we're looking to, we actually like this system. It does very good. Whenever it gets certain levels, it sends out an alert, which, triggers one of our staff to go out there and take a look at that station before it becomes problematic. So we're looking to essentially install a few more of these, about 28 of them at different stations. This request is pretty much to ask that you would approve this item to get into a contract with AWC, which Jacob and his team has created an agreement for us to go ahead and purchase and install these systems throughout the town.
Does anyone have any questions?
Yeah, what kind of money are we looking at?
So based on the proposal, it's about just north of 600,000. We do have a grant with the state, which would cover almost above 90% of this. The town, well, if I were to indicate the dollar amount, about $594,289, and the town would essentially cover just south of 10,000 to get to the 600,000 amount here. So we have a grant. The state has approved this item, this product. They've approved this vendor, which will be a sole source, vendor for us. And all we're looking to do to get this funding is to approve this agreement, which will get forwarded to the state and essentially purchased and installed.
Okay, thank you.
So I do want to thank Dave Segerson, Connie Vass, I always butcher her last name, Connie V, Dee Carper, our legislator, Senator Pizzo, as well as Representative Marie Woodson, because they were the ones that gave us this legislative budget request last year or the year before for this project. So I do want to reach out and just say thank you again. And it's about time it finally came to fruition. And we'll be looking for new LBRs for the upcoming cycle, which I see Dave put in his monthly report, giving everyone the schedule to go up to Tallahassee from March through May. So I do look forward to all of you guys going up there and asking for more legislative budget requests so we can get all these projects done that our engineers just presented today. All right, thanks. So for that, we can put that on consent.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. 8.4 is the minutes. We can put that on consent as well. 9.1, discussion invoices exceeding 500. So this kind of keeps going on the agenda, dropping off the agenda, but it should just be a part of our finance report on our monthly reports that we get to see a copy of the invoices of what we're paying out that's over 500 or whatever dollar amount you want to set.
Didn't we vote for that?
To come back on the agenda.
More than a year ago, we voted for,
It keeps dropping off, so I have to keep kind of putting
yeah,
it
but
back.
$500 is a very small amount, discretion amount.
Well, we don't vote to approve it, it's just for us to see it. It's just to see all the bills going out, so that it's transparency.
So we're not voting on.
No, we're not voting on it.
minimum.
Nope, we're not
Okay,
voting on it, it's
okay.
just for us to see it, just so that it's transparency. that we see it.
Send it to us for transparency.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
So it's just, it goes on there, it drops off, it goes on there, it drops off. So I just kind of put it back out there.
Yeah, you can put it back on.
Okay, thanks. 9.2 was the actuarial services that we had the discussion on that we need to get done. It's like,
May I? Thank you, Mayor, Commission. So this item, you may recall, we had Ms. Rosen come to a workshop before the last commission meeting in December to present on the pension matters, including the actuarial. The item before you is to engage the actuary, VIA Actuarial Solutions. This is the actuarial firm that the town has used in prior years. This is a new engagement agreement. Commissioner, this is a perfect example. The town has used this firm for many, many years. They're a professional service provider. Many city codes have exceptions to procurement for professional services, as does ours. However, actuarial services are not specifically listed as a professional service in the procurement code. Some codes do have them, ours does not. That may be something to consider in the future. But within the context of a waiver of competitive procurement, we have a resolution that's going to be coming before you at your commission meeting next week to engage VIA Solutions based on your consultant's recommendation and the recommendation of the pension board, consistent with that procurement process. So we've reviewed the contract. We've actually provided our standard form terms and conditions addendum, which includes all the statutory requirements for public contracts, along with the resolution that you'll see on your commission meeting next week.
okay. So if you guys have no questions about that, we'll go ahead and approve that. And also,
And that'll be a resolution. So you'll
Yeah.
see that. You'll see that as a resolution.
yeah. And then I know we discussed, you discussed adding that as well to the procurement.
If you'd like, I mean, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can.
I think we need to add that to professional services because it's not like
Yeah, I mean,
there's.
it's not uncommon. I was actually surprised that we don't have that provision in our code.
Yeah, well, I had asked before if we could compare some of the other cities' professional
yeah.
services and expand what constitutes professional
And
services.
if I may, Mayor, to that point, rather than make that one change at this point, with your permission, the commission's permission, if we could just take the procurement code in its entirety and take some time just to go through it and maybe bring back a number of recommendations, work with your town manager, he may have some thoughts as well, and bring back a potential just recommended update to the procurement code.
Well, I kind of want to get the short.
Well, this won't stop the actuary. This will get, yeah.
I want to stop the resolutions of having to write a resolution every
Well,
time.
that will come back. Yeah,
So let's get that done this week, well, next week, but then.
yeah, that's already on the agenda.
Stuff
Yeah.
we'll bring it back so that we can expand professional services and look and see what other things we can copy and steal from Pines and Aventura.
So, Madam Mayor, just a quick question, since we're gonna review the procurement, are we gonna move forward with the ordinance for next week?
Yes, that's
Okay.
what she's
Yes.
saying.
Okay. And with that, attorney comments?
I have nothing. No, thank you. Oh, I do have one comment actually, Mayor, as we enter January, just to be mindful that the ethics training disclosures for calendar year 2024 need to be filed by the end of January.
Oh, I thought-
So they should have all be filed. If they haven't been filed for 2024, just a reminder to file them before the end of the month.
Okay.
This is for last year.
That's been done. Yeah, I did that.
You probably did it a year ago, but it's,
Yeah,
it just
I think
So
everyone's-
we do them again this year.
This year, yeah. January 1st, we start all over again.
start over, 4 more hours.
I love that because I forget.
And just for reference, the League of Cities is in the process of planning a ethics training for January 31st.
Do a little update
Okay.
on the
It's
EPA.
catered towards newly electeds because it has to be within
Oh, that's
120
not-
days
Oh.
of the election, but it will satisfy your requirement.
Okay.
I expect that Sully's going to be sending out an invite probably in the next week or so.
If you like.
See, I think she sent something already. I don't know what she sent.
We have a conference call with her, I
you
think
wanna
for
do
Friday.
remarks
coordinate the
It don't
presentation.
matter.
Okay.
But it's going to be
How we
Friday
do it, as long as we let people know what's
in
going on.
Plantation at Volunteer Park, I believe. I'm not sure where that
Why
is.
don't you introduce it and then toss it to
Okay,
me, Bill?
plantation.
I'll get you the details.
Okay. Okay, perfect. All right.
Sounds
thank
good.
you. Okay.
That's all, Mayor.
Town
Thank you.
manager comments? Okay.
Well, actually, Mayor, I'm presuming you'll mention it, but I received a memo today about what's going on January 18th. with reference to our restoring or actually having a food drive on that day.
Oh, yeah.
So, and I know you were the initiator of it, so I don't want to steal your thunder. I just want to say thank you because it's something that's in need in this town. So thank you, and I'll let you elaborate on the details. But that was all I had.
And that was Saturday, the 18th,
Yes.
food drive, okay.
And that's going to be with Farm Share and South Permo. I wasn't going to mention it, but okay.
Now we know. We'll be there, I hope.
Deputy Town Manager comment?
No, we just, we're wrapping up our legislative preparations for Tallahassee. We didn't speak about that tonight, but we are ramping up for Tallahassee with our projects. And so look forward to hearing some different information from David. He's here tonight. He'll probably send you an update via email, letting you know what the activities are starting next week and going into February as well as we prepare for March legislative session in Tallahassee.
Dave, did you want to speak? I'm sorry. I know you put your report in there and I kind of just mentioned to send them up there. Okay. Okay, yeah, because you did a long report.
David Sigerson, consultant for the town. As Chandra mentioned, everybody's been working on gearing up for the session. Connie's got her, she submitted the Senate leafer to Terry in Senator Pizzo's office. I'm not sure what the status is with Marie, but I know that's in the works. And I just wanted to mention that Chandler and I attended the Broward Legislative Delegation meeting, in which he was able to introduce himself to Marie and to Rosalind, I believe, as well, who is the vice chair of the delegation. Marie is the chair of the delegation. Marie was also kind enough, I asked her to introduce him, and she was kind enough to do that. So it was, and he got to meet a few other of the members of the delegation. So we're sort of ramping up our presence at, with the local delegation. I've been starting to attend more and more of the MPO meetings. I went to, in my report, I mentioned I went to the Technical Advisory Committee meeting. It was very interesting. I learned about a grant. Unfortunately, we passed it on to D, but unfortunately, we would not qualify for that grant. But I think it's a worthwhile exercise for me to engage with the MPO, with the county, and maybe even with the school board. So that's what we're doing.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sounds good. Thank you. Does Commissioner Jacobs have any?
Commissioner Jacobs, would you like to speak?
Is he still there?
Commissioner Jacobs?
Can he hear you?
Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me?
We hear you.
Yeah. So seeing how we've been in now 27 years non-compliant with the state and county with our stormwater and sewer master plans, now that they're complete and hopefully they've all been updated with the county and state, so we're in good graces with them finally, that we have a plan put in place for every 5 years that they're updated going forward, so we don't end up in this situation again.
I agree.
This all happened under the previous administration, and it took a lot of work to get this and a lot of money to get these caught back up. They've been pushed aside for years. So now we're in a good spot. I just want to make sure with the town manager and our Stanley, our Director of Public Works, that we have a 5-year plan rolled out where these get updated as per policy every 5 years. So just want to make sure that happens going forward, and we don't fall behind anymore. That's all I have to say.
Well said.
Commissioner Kasham?
Commissioner Kasham, are you still on? I don't think she's.
We lost her.
Yeah, she probably hung up already.
Okay. Bill, comments?
Yeah, I would just like to give it just a little bit of an update. We had a very informative meeting with the people from the EPA about our toxic toxic site over here. It seems like I was kind of I kind of pressed them to have a meeting so we could find out what's taken so long and what are they doing and what kind of results are we going to get. And they actually gave us quite a list of things that were causing it to drag on for so long. It seems like Broward County owned part of the property, and so they had to get permission from Broward County to do this and that and the other. And there was all kinds of different, I'm not going to call them excuses, reasons why they didn't get things done. But anyway, things are moving forwards on it, and it looks like they are going to be putting bids out to contractors. They say that takes up to 6 months sometimes, 4 to 6 months sometimes. But they are moving on it, and it's just kind of one of those things that moves at a snail's pace, unfortunately. But it's moving.
Mayor, can I add a footnote to that?
Yes.
Just so you know, people understand the scope of what's going on here. Commissioner Hodgkins has been appropriately making sure that these government officials are moving the pieces down the chessboard as opposed to waiting. And so we asked them, what is the estimate of the cost of the work that's going to be done? Now, this is involving monies from the state government as well as the federal EPA. Here's the number, $60 million. And we all know how things tend to increase when you go through the bidding process, but $60 million. So this is not a small project. And I appreciate the fact that Commissioner Hodgkins has been willing to wake up the sleeping bear of federal and state government to make sure this moves along. But it's going to be a massive project. Our service department participated as well. So we'll make sure all the citizens are well warned, and our departments and commissioners and leadership know what we're going to have to deal with. But it's just great to see all these federal and state authorities finally coming to the table and making us aware. And by the way, breaking ground before the end of the year 2025. That is their objective. That's all I had, Mayor.
And also, just as an added, that out of all that money, guess what? The state is actually throwing in the $30 million of that figure, and which is surprising. I thought that the feds picked up most of it, but actually the state is picking up 30, and the feds are going to pick up the other 20 something. So it's quite a project. It's quite a costly project, but they will encapsulate this in a concrete slurry. They will get it isolated and filter out, get rid of all the dirty dirt, I guess I call it. So anyway, that's where that's at.
It's more than 5 years ago that I received a letter from the EPA because I am living in an area that's going to be affected of it, and they said they were going to start during the summer. There will be some dust problems and so forth, and then COVID, nothing happened. And COVID came, and the ball's just been rolling down the hill, and nothing is happening. But I'm very happy that finally we're getting a solution. I hope it doesn't give us too much pollution issues during the process, but we'll live with it.
Any comments?
No, that's it.
Happy New Year's, everyone. And with that, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 7:28.
Good night, Commissioner Jacob.